Hey everybody, today we're going to be going through how to make your own Fall Guy character model in Blender. This game is an absolute blast to play with family and friends. I highly suggest you go check it out. They are not a sponsor of this video, I just really enjoy it and thought it'd be a fun video to do. So let's get started. So to start, we're going to use some reference images. I just rotated the character in the game and took some screenshots, and you can download those at a link in the description if you want, or you can go ahead and take some of your own character. I just went with the base character model to make it easier. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to switch to front view here, because whatever view you drag them in at, it will come in at that angle. So I'm going to drag the Fall Guys front view in there, then I'm going to hit 3 to go to the side view. Now I'm going to drag this into the side view here. Now what I'm going to do is center both of those up. So if I kind of rotate, grab both of those, hit Shift S, I can do selection to cursor, and since my cursor is at the center, it should do that. I have it at medium point, so I'm going to go ahead and do that for each one individually. There we go. And now those are at the center. I want those to be a little bit see-through. So what I'm going to do is grab the reference image, come down here to the reference panel. I'm going to turn on transparency. I'm going to turn mine down to something really low, like 15%. And I want that to always be in front so that it's always visible for me. I'm going to do the same thing for the front image as well. 0.15% and turn that on to front. Now I don't want to be accidentally grabbing these, so I'm going to come up here, turn on this restriction toggle here, and just click that so I can't grab those. So now we can select our cube but not the reference images. So we will be using the default cube instead of deleting it like most tutorials, and what we're going to do is add a subdivision surface modifier on there, and we're going to do just kind of some basic box modeling over this front view. So if we press 1 and snap into front view, we'll grab this camera here that I have and we'll put H to default, hide that. And then now what we're going to do is start kind of adjusting this mesh to match our Fall Guy. We can actually see here that our reference image is actually a little off kilter, so I'm just going to go ahead, select that, rotate that ever so slightly to kind of straighten them up, and then go ahead and turn off that selectability. Now I actually want these polygons to work with, so I'm going to go ahead here, I'm going to apply the subdivision, then I'm actually going to add another one, and I'll just let that sit on top. So what I'm going to do is go into edit mode. Now we have a little bit more to work with here. I'm going to switch over to wireframe mode. I'm going to select everything by pressing A. I'm going to scale it up there. Going to move that down. Just keep moving that until I kind of get that to fit around the bottom of the character. Now we're going to use a mirror modifier here at the end. So I'm really going to focus mostly on adjusting the right side. So let's go ahead, we'll grab this here, and I'm going to scale on the Z axis there. Now, if you're watching this tutorial, I'm assuming you're already comfortable with Blender, but if you are not and you're a complete beginner, I'm using S, R, and G for scale, rotation, and grab. Now what I'm going to do is box select this top piece here, and I want to stretch kind of the whole body out, so I'm going to turn on proportional editing here. I'm going to hit G and then Z and move that up there. And we can see that's already working pretty well. So what I'm going to do is Alt-click this line here and turn off proportional editing. I'm going to hit SZ0 and do the same for here, SC0. And whenever you're using kind of like box modeling, you'll sometimes notice that some of the corners and stuff kind of smear when you tend to stretch them like that, and you'll get kind of wonky angles. So I'm just going ahead and fixing those angles. So I'm going to grab this line here, scale that in, grab this line, scale it in. Now you can see here that we have some pretty uneven faces, and if you want to animate this character, that'll be an issue. So we'll go ahead, hit Control R, insert a loop cut there, hit Control R here. I'm going to roll up once on my mouse wheel, insert 2 there. I'm going to hit Control R and insert 1 here. And you can see with that, the front of our bodies looking pretty good. So let's go to the side view here. So in the side view, we can see that we're a little off. So what we're going to do is tab back into edit mode. I'm going to switch over to wireframe. I'm going to grab the top of their head, and I'm going to use proportional editing just to kind of shift everything around a bit. And if you don't know, you can change the size of that proportion that it edits with the mouse wheel there. So let's go ahead, move this back, and let's go ahead, grab the bottom here and maybe scale this in a tiny bit, and make sure you lock on the Y. So just press S and then Y. You don't only scale in on the Y. If you're a complete beginner, you can use the gizmos over here and just kind of scale them in that way if you want, or move them that way. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this front in bring this face in a little bit, and I don't want my sphere of influence to affect that much. Okay, so what we're doing here is we're almost just like tracing, kind of just matching it on the edge here. Perfect. So let's come down here, and we're just going to grab these, move them in there. Going to kind of grab all of this here and move this back. And I'm going to actually rotate that one a little bit. You can see that our vertices here are getting a bit wonky. We want to keep good edge flow, so we're going to do that. Now I'm going to turn off proportional editing and kind of take these edges here and shift them into the center. And we can see here that our edges are getting a bit wonky there. So we'll do S, Y, 0 and kind of straighten those out so that our edge flow is not too far off. I think this here is okay, but if you want, you can straighten those out as well. And here on the side, it looks like our middle here is dropping a little low. So let's just kind of hang that up there, and we'll bring these vertices up here. Then we got to bring in these vertices kind of for his butt. So I'm just selecting these vertices and pressing G to grab, but feel free to use your gizmo and watch in half speed if you're a beginner. So with that, I feel like we have a pretty convincing shape. I'm going to right click, hit shade smooth. And with that, we have a fairly decent looking fall guy. Now I feel like up here, and this is because we started with a box, we're getting a bit kind of harsh of the corners on the head there. So if you're ever using a box modeling method like we're using right now, one really easy fix is to go to the top, grab all these 4 corners here, go into top view and just kind of scale down a little bit. And you'll see that that kind of removes that cornered look. Now the advantage of box modeling is you don't get that pinch at the top that you get when you apply subdivision to a UV sphere. The disadvantage is that when you first start kind of smoothing things out, it's going to have a little bit of those corners kind of mixed in there. So with that, we can go ahead and kind of work on doing their face here. So if we tab into edit mode again, you can see we don't have a ton of vertices to work here. So we can actually go ahead and apply our subdivision again and see if we have enough vertices now. And I feel like we do. So we're going to use the loop cut tool. So that is an add-on and it comes with Blender for free. So you can just come up here, type in loop tools, make sure that's enabled. And then when you press N to reveal your panel over here under the edit option, you will see there is loop tools. And we're going to be using this circle function to kind of get the face. So I'm just going to go ahead and save my file here just to make sure. And if anything goes wrong, I can go ahead and revert, because this can sometimes really screw up your geometry. So we're going to kind of grab some of the faces around this area. So let's go ahead and grab kind of just a box of vertices here. So you want to make sure you're just grabbing a square. And then what we're going to do is hit circle, and you will see that that turns those loops into a circle. So we can go ahead and then move that around and try and kind of just generally match that on the face of our character. So I'm just going to move that up on the Z axis, and I'm actually going to scale that down a bit because it seems like it might not be a perfect circle. And there we go. Now it's slightly off here on the edge, but I'm okay with that. So now when we come over here, we can see that it's kind of uglied up our geometry. So let's go ahead, we'll go around and we will use the C button to create that circle select. I'm just going to drag around and grab these. And then you can see it's not working because what it's done is kind of push the faces back in when it did that loop cut. So what we can do is we can kind of pull that out there. Great. And we can take this here, we can select all of these, and then now if you hit Control plus on your numpad, it will actually go up a selection of a loop around there. And what I'm going to do is hit S, Y, 0 to kind of flatten out those faces there. So now we kind of have like a little flat face there. I'm going to bring that out a bit, and then I'm going to kind of rotate that back ever so slightly, and maybe bring that up a little bit so it's kind of matching our face there from the side. And if you want, you can kind of play with this a bit more, but that's a good starting point. Now what I'm going to do is hit E, and that'll create the extrude, and then I'm going to hit Y twice, and that'll lock it to the global Y axis, meaning that we can extrude back on the Y there. And I'm just going to bring the face back just a little bit. Their faces aren't that far inset in. And we can see that now we kind of get that kind of like look of the little circle there. And to make that a little bit smoother, what we're going to do is actually bevel those edges. So we'll alt click in here, and that'll select part of the edge loop, and we'll just keep holding shift and alt click around until we have that whole edge loop. Now what we're going to do is hit Control B, and that'll let us bevel there. We're just gonna add a small bevel inside of there to smooth that out a bit. Now I think this is looking a bit pointed, so I'm going to go ahead and grab this edge loop out here. And again, I'm holding alt click. This tutorial really does assume that you know how to use Blender. I have plenty of beginner tutorials. If you're having a hard time keeping up here, feel free to go do some of those and come back. So I'm just gonna move that back on the Y-axis a bit. Then I'm going to hit Control B and just add a little bevel there. And with that, that'll kind of give our little Fall Guys a circular face there. And if you want, you can spend some more time smoothing that out. Really, the finessing could make that look a little bit better, but we're gonna move on just for the sake of not doing an hour-long tutorial. So we're gonna go here into the side view, and next we're going to work on the arms. Now we'll use the mirror modifier for the arms so that we only have to do them once, and then we'll attach them to the body, and I'll show you how to do that at the end. So what we'll do next is create a sphere. So next let's create another cube, and we will subdivide that cube twice, and then we will apply. And then what we're going to do is grab that cube, bring it over here, we'll switch into wireframe mode, and we're going to rotate so this line kind of matches the arm kind of right there. So we're kind of hitting that angle of the arm. We're going to scale that down. What you can do now is tab into edit mode. We'll switch to vertice mode. We're going to grab these vertices here with the circle select, just kind of stretch those out so that they head into our body there. We'll go to the side view here. We're going to make sure that we have this kind of lined up with our arm here. And then again, we're just going to go along and trace this on the body. Now, what I'm going to do to kind of start is I'm going to grab these bottom ones here. I'm actually just going to take these all the way down here to the hand. And grab these here, turn on my proportional editing, kind of shift some things down there. Now let's go ahead, add some geometry here. So I'm hitting Control R and then up on my middle mouse button to add those loop cuts. Click there. Let's just start kind of grabbing some of these and kind of moving those out to get the arm to kind of match. And there's not a real science to this. It's just kind of making sure you don't pull anything too far and keeping good edge flow. And I find that the proportional editing really helps you keep good edge flow since it adjusts all the vertices around it. Let's go ahead, grab some of these, maybe bring those in a little bit there. And with that, I feel like we have a pretty good kind of base for the arm. Let's go ahead, switch to the side view here. Now they have this kind of built at an angle. I don't think that we necessarily need to focus too much on that, but if you want to go ahead and add an angle, you can grab this bottom here and we can kind of rotate that in this view. I'm going to turn off proportional editing for this. And we're going to scale this out on the Y. We're just going to start kind of grabbing some of those vertices until they match. So I'm just going to scale that on the Y a bit more. And perfect. We can see here that this elbow is kind of getting lost. So I'm just going to grab some of these. I'm alt clicking those and kind of moving those and scaling those as they need to be. So that's how you go about kind of adding a bend into the arm there. We can see here, I'm going to grab some of these vertices, turn on proportional editing to kind of drag a couple things back over there. And this is really just kind of like a tracing game. So just go ahead and keep playing with that. Now I have a tiny bit more kind of like lumps in there than I would want. So I think one way I can fix that is maybe grabbing this one here and rotating it a bit. Seems like that's where some of the lumps are coming from. So I'm just going to rotate these tiny bit to the right. This now has been extended, so I'm just going to add another edge loop. And those rotations, again, kind of screw that up in the front. It really is just a back and forth game. So let's go ahead, grab these bottom ones here, and move those out. So like I said, it's a lot of back and forth, but I think that should be good enough. Yes, we could keep finessing it. It looks like some of the edge flow is a little icky back there, but again, for the sake of the tutorial, I'm gonna go ahead and speed up there. So now we're gonna go ahead and add the fingers. So to add the fingers, what we will do is come down here. We will grab this here, and we're going to be doing some extrusions. Now, it's a bit difficult to kind of see from the front view, so we'll probably focus mostly here on the side view. So let's go ahead and we'll rotate up here so we kind of get a flat view of our look there. We're just gonna grab this whole bottom half here, go back to our side view. Let's just extrude that out down here to the bottom. We're gonna scale that down on the Z a little bit, and here we go. You can see here that we kind of have a mismatch with the front and side when it comes to the hands. And I think that's because they were bobbing in the animation. I'm gonna add another edge loop there. So we'll just stick to the side view for the purpose of this tutorial. So now what we're going to do is we're gonna rotate down here. We're going to press 3 to switch to face mode. We're gonna use the circle select. We're gonna kind of grab these right here to kind of extrude that first finger. So going back to the side view, I'm gonna hit E with those selected, and I'm gonna press Z again so they kind of come straight down, because that's really where I want them right now. And then I'm going to come back here, and I'm going to grab these fingers here, go back to the side view, and I'm going to extrude that finger down. I'm gonna turn off proportional editing. I think it's harming me more than it's helping. Then what I'm going to do is rotate down here. I'm going to grab these fingers here from the side view, and I'm going to extrude there, scale that in a bit. And you can see right now that's kind of lumpy looking, and we'll work on fixing that in a section. So let's go here, grab these over here, extrude that down. That kind of shot off to the angle, so I'm just going to press C again so it goes straight down. Scale that in, and there we go. We kind of have our 3 base fingers there, and we need to go ahead and kind of add a little bit of geometry to the edges here so that we can kind of smooth them out. So let's first of all kind of give these more of a circular look. So if we go ahead and use that loop tool again, we can alt click there, here, and that'll select both of those. And if we hit circle, that'll do its best to turn it into a circle, and you can see that it's twisted all the vertices around. So what we'll actually do is grab the rotation tool, little gizmo there, and kind of twist those back around, and then we'll grab the move gizmo, and I'm going to kind of move those up so they kind of come in at a point, and then I'm going to go ahead and do that on this finger too. And this by no means is perfect, but it will give us a kind of good starting point. This really just kind of take just a lot of finessing and just playing with it. Fingers and things are really difficult, especially if you are new to Blender. So just kind of grabbing those, pulling those in. Now, their fingers are a bit more kind of like square. So if you want, you can go ahead and do that. For the sake of this tutorial, like I said, I'm gonna kind of try and speed through a bit. So I'm gonna grab this here and grab that so it comes down to the bottom of the finger more. I'm gonna add a couple edge loops there, a couple edge loops there, and a couple edge loops there. So again, I'm just holding Control R. And you can see here that we're starting to get some kind of ugly overlap here in the center. So what I would do is come in here and grab these vertices that are kind of starting to overlap here in the wireframe mode. And I'm just gonna hit S, X, or sorry, I'm gonna escape S, S, or I'm just gonna press S, Y, 0, kind of flatten those out move those so they're not overlapping so much. And when you come out here, you can see that we're getting a little bit better of a result. And I would just kind of move these around and dig these vertices out. So the circle tool is great, but it can sometimes kind of, as you see here, create these unnecessary overlaps. So we're just kind of doing a little bit of cleanup here. Really no quick or right way to do this. It's just a tedious process. So I'm actually just going to kind of fast forward so that we can move on to the next section. But just know that I'm just moving around, tapping G, kind of grabbing these vertices, moving them around until I get something that looks kind of clean. There's really, again, as I said, no right way to do this, and your results will probably look slightly different than mine, even if you're following along as closely as possible. So what I'm doing here is I just switched to sculpt mode, and I'm just using the smooth option here to kind of smooth out the edges of some of those fingers so that they don't look so kind of harsh at the ends there. Now, if I was going to polish this off for character animation, I would actually go ahead and keep working with these crevices up here, but I think for the purposes of this tutorial, that is good enough. So we're going to leave that there. And if you put a subdivision surface modifier on it, you can actually see it's cleaning up in between those fingers anyway. So I'll leave that on for the remainder of this tutorial. And now what we need to do is go ahead and add a thumb. So we see that the thumb's up here. We'll switch to our side view here, and we're gonna kind of grab the faces right there. So we'll come here to the front view. We'll grab these couple faces right here, and then we're just going to hit E to extrude those out. And I want to start with one small extrusion. I'm going to turn off the subdivision here to make this easier for you to follow along. And then I'm going to kind of drag this down on the Z a bit and rotate it a little bit. I don't want to create too much overlap down there. And then I'm going to hit extrude again and rotate just a little bit more and drag that down just a tiny bit. I'm going to start to kind of scale that in for the thumb. I'm going to grab this vertice under here and pull that out because I don't want that to go too much. And I'm going to go ahead, grab these here, and I'm going to hit circle, but I want to make sure I only have the edges selected. So deselect these center ones. And if you don't know how to deselect with the circle select tool, so first of all, you get this tool by pressing C, which I mentioned earlier, but just to reiterate, and then you can deselect with the middle mouse button. And if I hit circle here and then kind of rotate that so that we don't blow our geometry up too much, we're starting to get kind of a thumb looking shape. Now I'm going to switch back to face selection, grab these four faces, and then I'm going to extrude again, rotate again, and this again is in the side view. And you don't have to match this thumb exactly. We're going to just kind of do something that works for our geometry here. So there you go. And with that, we have a pretty similar thumb there. If you want, you can grab that center vertice point, pull that out a bit. And when we have our subdivision back on, we can see that that's looking nice and smooth. If you want, you can make that thumb a little bit bigger. It looks like there's bigger at the base, but I think that looks fine for now. So now what we're going to do is go ahead and add these feet. Then after that, we're going to mirror the entire character. So let's go ahead here. We're going to grab our arm. We're going to hide that arm. We're going to go into our body here. And we're actually going to extrude out from the body with all those polygons we have in the center. So let's go to the front. It looks like their feet kind of start around here. So what we can do is switch to face mode. I'm just going to kind of rotate up under the bottom here and kind of select some spots there. Those 6 faces look pretty good. Looks like we actually don't need that much, so I'm just going to deselect these 2 on the left and have these kind of faces right there. Now what I'm going to do is hit E to extrude, and you'll see that'll move that there. And then I'm going to rotate this, bring this back over the foot here, and then I'm going to extrude all the way down here. Let's go to the side view, see where our foot actually lands. I'm going to rotate that, kind of bring that there. And we're actually going to bring this to the back of the heel, and we'll grab, by pressing 2, I can go back to edge mode, alt click, I will grab that there. in the middle, and we're going to kind of move that leg back. And we can go ahead and kind of shift these vertices back a bit as well. Now for this, I'm going to turn proportional editing back on to kind of adjust the mesh around it, because I don't want to break it too much there. And that kind of broke where my ankle was. So I'm going to turn off proportional editing, come back in here. I'm going to grab these vertices here in the back, and then I'm going to kind of bring those down to match the side of the leg there. And that's looking pretty good. We have these vertices here kind of coming out a bit wonky. Let's go into front view and see what's happening there. We actually need to start adding some more edge loops. So we'll go ahead, hit Control R, add an edge loop there. Bring that over just a bit. We'll grab these and we will move these over just a bit. I'm having trouble selecting that back one there. I'm going to switch to wireframe view to make this a bit easier. So I'm going to grab those on the right there and move that over. We can actually add another edge loop there if we want. Grab these here and kind of bring those in tighter. We can see that we're starting to kind of get the look of a leg. Now with this, we're going to want to add our subdivision modifier again to make sure that it's not kind of screwing things up too much. Great. So now what we can do is we want to make the bottom of the foot kind of stay tight here. But first what we're going to do is extend out the foot. So if we grab these two little faces here, we can hit extrude and move those forward. And I want the foot here to be flat. So we'll fix that in a second. I'm going to rotate this here, and that kind of gives me a little kind of flat Fall Guy foot. Now if you see here, they have quite a wide foot in the front. So we'll grab those two faces and we will scale that out on the X to kind of match the width of the foot there. And if you see, it kind of looks like they have more of a pointed tip. So let's go ahead and fix the bottom here. So first what we'll do is we'll grab the bottom vertices here in wireframe mode. And we're just going to flatten these out because right now our foot's getting really wonky from the side view. So in the side view, I'm going to hit SC0 and kind of flatten that foot out. Now in the image, they have a slight angle. So we got to do our best to kind of ignore that and envision what it really is supposed to look like. So what we'll do is grab these vertices over here on the top of the foot, and we're just going to drag those down on the Z to kind of get that pointed look. We'll go ahead, add an edge loop here, and that'll help that keep more of its form. Now, I feel like the foot here could still be a little flatter. You see it's kind of bouncing up there. So we'll add an edge loop here on the side, and we'll drag that down a bit so that it kind of holds our subdivision into place. And with that, we have a little kind of foot there. I think it looks a little pointed here. So I'm actually going to go ahead, grab these points here. And what's happened is since we added this edge loop on the bottom, it's kind of holding its form a bit more. So let's go ahead, grab those. And what we're going to do is set S and press X and just kind of scale in, give those a bit of a rounded look. And with that, we have our Fall Guy model. So let's go ahead. We're going to turn off these reference images over here. And then what we can do is we can go ahead and unhide the arm by hitting Alt-H. And it's going to bring those reference images back. So just hide those again. And I'm going to hide the camera again. Now what I'm going to do is click this arm and click the body, hit Control J. Now if you've been following along with me, your origin point here should still be on the center. And this should all still be lined up on the center. So what we can do is go into wireframe mode, click here, and we can delete those vertices. And then we should be able just to go ahead and add a mirror modifier. And great. Now you can move that up above the subdivision surface, and that can sometimes help with pinching. And you see that that pinch there goes wrong. So now we have our little Fall Guys character all modeled. So let's go ahead and look at how we can add some materials and maybe paint in those eyes. So I'm just going to choose a really bright color. So first of all, let me just toss some lights at this character. So let's go ahead. I'm going to switch to render view here. Move out here. I'm going to scale this light up. So just go ahead, add a few lights here. I'm going to put a big area light over here. I'm going to give this something crazy high, like 1500. Kind of pull that over there just so we can see what we're doing. Then I want to give them a little bit of a backlight. So I'm going to actually duplicate that, rotate that back around here and crank that up something even crazy higher because I just want to kind of create a harsh backlight there. And I'll bring this front light here up a little bit, and that's kind of how you can go about lighting a character with just two lights with that soft light kind of wrapping around. So let's go ahead and we'll add two materials to the body here. So we have this base material. Let's go ahead, add another, click new. We'll call this first one body. I feel like Fall Guys all have these really just kind of bright, fun colors. So I'm just gonna pick a really bright pink there. And I feel like they have a pretty low or high roughness, I should say. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn that up a bit to make them look a bit more diffuse. And let's go ahead here and add a face material. Now, we could go ahead and do a bunch of texture painting for the eyes and stuff, but we're gonna do a simple little trick to kind of make the eyes a little easier. So let's go ahead in here first, grab these two vertices here, and if we hit Control plus, it should go out and select, and we can hit assign there, and we can see that we're still kind of missing one there on the edge. So let's take a look at our subdivision surface here, and I'm going to turn this off in the viewport for the subdivision surface. You can actually click this little on cage button, and that will let us see what we're doing a bit easier. I'm going to switch over to material view, and I can see which faces are missing a bit easier. So I'm going to hit 3 to grab these faces here and assign the face material to those. And with that, we kind of have our little Fall Guy setup. So the easy way to do the eyes is if we turn back on that front reference image here, we can see they kind of have squashed eyes. And right now we're looking like our character's face is a little higher. So let's go ahead and drag them down a bit so they match, because I really like the proportions they have of the eyes here. So what we'll do to do this kind of simply is we're going to shift right click here, which will put our 3D cursor there. And when we go to mesh, we can actually add a circle. We'll hit R90X. And what that will do is rotate that 90 degrees on the X axis. And we're going to scale that in. We'll switch to wireframe mode so we can see what we're doing. We're going to scale that in so it matches the top of the eye there. Then we're going to tab into edit mode, switch to vertices there. We'll grab these bottom vertices here, and we'll hit E. And what we'll do is we'll tab into edit mode here. Make sure we have vertices turned on up here. You can do that or press 1. What I'm going to do is grab these bottom ones here, and you can use the gizmo if you want. We're going to drag that down on the Z so it kind of matches our eye there. Now the circle is not visible, so what we'll actually do is select everything. We'll just move this forward a little bit, and we're going to press F, and that will fill it. And if you go into the side view here, we can kind of rotate that to match our eye a bit. And now we will create a new material here. We'll make this one almost black. I don't want to do completely black. And we'll call this eye. And we'll hit object there. Let's go back into our rendered view, and you can see that now we have that there, and it's even casting a little shadow. You can get that as close as you want if you want less of a shadow, but I kind of like the look of the shadow. So with this object selected, we will now grab our Fall Guy, and we will hit Control J to join, and now we have our little Fall Guy model ready to render. So I'm going to turn off that reference there so you can see that a bit better. And there we go. Now, as usual, I love seeing everything that you create, so make sure to tag me at Southern Shoddy on Instagram. Also, make sure to check out Fall Guys if you haven't. It's really fun, and thanks for watching.